lawyer Trevor Sterling, who joins us in our central London studio. Trevor, good afternoon. I mean, we can only imagine what it must be like for somebody who's been through abuse to then have to go through it again. You can perhaps give us an idea of the effect it has on people.
Well, it's particularly difficult, not just for the individual, but also for their families. These individuals will have suffered an abuse which they will have had to have lived with for many years, and you can only imagine that once they have the need to give evidence at trial, how traumatic that experience is. But at the same time, the family then become aware of the trauma that they've endured. So it's a very difficult time, and what I have to say as well is that in terms of Mrs Andrade's family, heartfelt condolences, because this will of course be a very difficult time for them.
Trevor, do you find that because people are aware of what they potentially have to go through with a trial, that they drop charges, they don't want to do it?
Well, that does happen, and it's important that these support mechanisms are in place. There are special measures that can be taken, statutory special measures that can be taken. There must be and is a witness support process as well, and police liaison officers. But all of this has to come together. It has to give people confidence that they can come forwards, that they can give evidence, so that offenders are convicted, quite rightly convicted. And my concern sometimes is that victims are witnesses in these cases and are treated as witnesses and not victims. And we have to work very hard to make sure that people are not discouraged from coming forward and giving evidence.
I talked about with my last guest there about alternatives, about some ways that perhaps would prevent victims. They have to be questioned, of course they do, but prevent some of the harsher stuff getting through to them, or perhaps not having to do it face to face. What do you see as an alternative that might make it easier for those who have genuinely been victims of a sexual assault to go through the procedure?
Well, there are special measures which are considered, and an application can be made for the imposition of those special measures, and that includes such things as a screen to protect the individual from the victim. It includes such things as a video link. So they are there, and they have to be considered very carefully. I agree with Keith Vaz that perhaps there needs to be an improvement, certainly a consideration of the guidelines. The most important things for the victims is that they are given the support and they are offered counselling, that they understand the court process. The court process is there to support them because they are victims. So they must be familiar with the court environment, they must be offered counselling and support, and as they go through a trial, and I fully accept that the rigours of trial are as they must be, but they must be carefully supported right through that process, so that in the end justice can be achieved, and justice means that they can tell their story and that they can be believed.
At the bottom of your heart, Trevor, when you heard that the words fantasist and liar were used about this woman, does that sit comfortably with you? Is that something that you hear in a courtroom?
Well, unfortunately we do hear that, and the good thing here, if that's the right expression, is to say that she was utterly vindicated by the conviction. Unfortunately, questioning can take shape in many different forms. I think that what we have to remember here is that we are talking about somebody who was a victim, an abuse victim, and that's a special case, and we do need to be careful about how we question such individuals, not to use terms which are perhaps unnecessarily inflammatory. It's not a criticism of the barrister involved, but it is something which we need to think about culturally as we now are becoming more and more involved in these cases, and that they're receiving more publicity.
Trevor Sterling, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.